Hey guys, tonight let's dim the lights, make sure the tea isn't too hot, and sink into something that's a little eerie but mostly just slow. Very slow. You've probably heard those urban legends. A phone rings. Someone answers. The voice on the other end is calm, familiar, maybe even friendly. The catch? That person has been dead for years. Spooky, yes, but don't worry, we're not here to do jump scares or paranormal horror. That's way too much effort, and I'm about to lull you gently into sleep. Instead, think of this as a long, cozy walk through the cultural history of death. So let's settle in. Tonight, we're going to drift through the lives of the long dead who refused to stop talking. People who lingered in portraits, in gossip, and, yes, even in the kind of ghost stories that made Victorians absolutely lose their minds with excitement. And along the way, we'll notice that the ones clinging hardest to the idea of a call from the dead were often the ones whose own lives were messiest. Now, to really ease into this, let's start with the ultimate poster boy for tragic legacies and desperate attempts to stay in touch with the departed. King Charles II of Spain. Because if anyone's life felt like a missed call from beyond the grave, it was this guy. Charles II of Spain, sometimes generously called the Bewitched, is what happens when your entire family tree decides to fold in on itself like badly designed origami. The Spanish Habsburg dynasty had been intermarrying for so long.
It's like, imagine you're the most important man in Spain. And instead of asking you about policy, everyone just wants to know whether you've been haunted today. And if you don't answer, well, that's another missed call from the beyond. Charles spent his entire short, sickly life trapped in this weird limbo, half alive, half a relic, constantly being prayed over. His court became a revolving door of spiritual advisors, miracle workers, and people claiming to hear messages from the dead Habsburg ancestors who were very, very disappointed in how things were going. Let's float from Spain to France, where, of course, the Bourbons were doing their own tragic soap opera version of The Last Call. Take poor Louis XVII. He was the son of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, a child who technically became king of France while locked in a prison cell. He was just 10 years old when his parents lost their heads, and instead of ruling, he slowly wasted away in the dank Temple prison. The official record says he died in 1795, neglected.
If that isn't the world's weirdest version of a last call, I don't know what is. But since we're talking bedtime, let's keep our voices soft and drift into one of the sleepiest yet most bizarre royal stories, Queen Victoria and her obsession with the dead. Victoria, you see, never hung up the phone, metaphorically speaking. When Prince Albert died in 1861, she turned her entire existence into a never-ending call with him. She wore black for the rest of her life. She kept his rooms exactly as they were. She even ordered hot water to be delivered to his bathroom every morning, as if he might stroll back in after a century-long shower. And because she was queen and could do whatever she wanted, she actually hired mediums and spiritualists to keep the line open. The Victorians, the 19th century was the golden age of talking to the dead. Mediums raked in fortunes. Tables wobbled mysteriously. Knocks echoed in candlelit rooms. People wrote about ectoplasm like it was the latest fashion trend. And of course, the royals couldn't resist joining in. Because if you've already been raised to believe that God personally ordained your family to rule over millions of strangers, then believing your dead uncle is calling you through a spooky trumpet is, honestly, not that big of a leap. Which brings us neatly to another strange royal habit, treating portraits like phones. Take the Russian Romanovs. For centuries, they believed their icons, those religious paintings, were basically open lines to heaven. Entire military campaigns were launched only after the right portrait had been carried into battle, as though a saint was just a phone call away, ready to offer moral support. It's not exactly a ringing iPhone, but the effect was the same.
people desperately wanting confirmation that the dead were still listening. And before you drift off too deep,